Olisa Agbakugba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, says Anti-Graft Agency, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, should not be in existence. Agbakugba argues that the commission is operating outside the Constitution.
Well, joining us now is Kingsley Amaku, who is the Assistant Director and Head of Department at the Legal and Sanctions Directorate of the Financial Intelligence Unit. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, one fundamental question that's been asked is the constitutionality or the powers, backed by law for the NFIU to come up with this order or directive, if you like, especially as it affects the state. You heard in that report, once the federal government has remitted money to the accounts of the states, that's it. The NFIU cannot breathe down their neck to carry out any directive.
I think that's a very wrong interpretation of the Constitution because it doesn't take into cognizance what exactly is being regulated. These guidelines is not seeking to regulate how the states use their money. The same Constitution, under the exclusive list, gives the federal government, through the National Assembly, the powers to make laws as it relates to currencies and also on exchange controls. So essentially, the person who prints the naira has the power to determine how the naira is used. Not whether you're going to build a road or whether you're not going to build a school. That's left to the states to determine. So what is in issue,
right,
is essentially how you use the naira, which is an exclusive list item, meaning that only the federal government can make laws as it relates to that.
Yeah, but this law will affect the states too and the local governments.
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely. In the same way that the Constitution only provides that only the federal government can have an army. The army will also work for the local government and for the states. There are lists of items on the three legislative lists. The one that is called the exclusive list is reserved for the National Assembly. And on that list, number 15 and number 26 are currency and exchange controls. These are adjuncts to that power, which has been ceded to the federal government by the Constitution.
Okay.
So there is not a debate at all to that.
Okay, so before we continue this conversation, let's listen to what the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olisa Agbakugba, had to say on the EFCC, which you're familiar with. It was domiciled under the NFI for a while. Let's listen to him.
Decided by the Supreme Court, in which they say federalism means two autonomous and independent governments. Now, if that is correct, then the EFCC has no right to go to a state public account to say, we want to probe you, because they have no power. The other point to note is that the EFCC is a federal establishment enacted by the National Assembly. And under Section 4 of the Constitution, powers of government are divided into two, federal and state. If the EFCC is a federal agency, can the EFCC be prosecuting state offenses? That is the question. And that came up in the Mobike case, and the Supreme Court castigated the EFCC. You can't be everywhere. If we allow you to do what you are doing, then it means you have made the police redundant, you have made all law enforcement agencies redundant.
So you have him there talking about the EFCC.
Yeah.
And one wonders if this does not extend to the NFIU as an agency established by the federal government.
No, it doesn't. The operating word in, just listen to him, is can the EFCC prosecute state offenses? Now, there are federal offenses, okay? When a federal offense percolates down from the federation to the states, to the local government. Anyone who offends those laws will answer to the federal prosecutor. Okay, but there are state offenses. Okay, right. And he asked, the question he said that was posed by the court is whether the EFCC can prosecute state offenses, and the court said no. Now, we're not talking about state offenses.
Yes, so let's come to the issue where we're talking about. You are saying that starting 1st of March,
yes,
state and local governments and the federal government cannot withdraw cash from their accounts.
Indeed.
They should go cashless.
Absolutely.
The question then is, even under the cashless policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, individuals and corporate bodies who have less security and other public duties are allowed to withdraw certain amounts of money. Why is the NFIU then saying state government, local government, who have more public responsibilities should not even withdraw cash?
Very well. And I think it's a very interesting question. And I think the public needs to understand, one, the premise on which this guideline is made. We already have the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act. Now, and we also have the Terrorism Financing Prevention and Prohibition Act.
Yes.
We also have the Process of Crime Law, Management Law. These are new legislation that had been just signed into law in May this year. And I thank the president for signing those laws because they have elevated Nigeria's position in the standing in the financial community, global financial community. But coming down to the issue, these laws have prescriptions. Section 2, Section 13 of the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act actually limits the amount of cash you can have outside the banking hall. Okay. Now, that provision does not exclude the power, does not give federal government any exclusion clause, meaning that as much as the private person can be prosecuted for doing those, the federal government is bound by law to also obey the law. Now, what this guideline is doing is explaining to government that the practice it has is endangering the financial system and indeed is endangering the Nigerian economy.
In what way specifically?
Because, first of all, remember that terrorism, as we know it, runs heavily on cash. Okay? Any system that is prone to cash, any government that is prone to cash in the 21st century, if you check the pattern of terrorism, you see terrorism is high in those billings. Money laundering runs on the same predicate scheme, okay? Meaning that cash is a major driver for these crimes and they destroy the economy. The corruption we're talking about, why it is so pervasive is also because of cash, because there is no audit trail that you can use connect cash. Cash is a dark alley in terms of financial practices and so even the government we're talking about has a policy for cashless economy, isn't it? So it should also lead by example. And the most important,
cashless policy means zero cash. But that's what the NFI is saying.
No, the NFI is not saying zero cash. NFI is saying that public accounts, not you and me.
Of course,
you can use
by the state government, the tiers of government.
So what should government be paying cash with? For what? Government shouldn't be paying anybody by cash. Remember, anyway, that even at that, there is a provision here allowing the president to approve where national security or exigencies require him to approve for civil servants to withdraw cash. It's important to note that, like I said, the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act does not exclude civil servants from the provisions of the law. Meaning that if you, as a civil servant, and you go to the banking hall and you withdraw more than the restriction on the Section 2, you're supposed to be held for money laundering.
Yeah, well, two issues here.
Yes.
The timing of this. I mean, this is barely 5 months to the end of the life of this administration.
Absolutely.
Why not with immediate effect? And then secondly, will this not be counterproductive in the event that, you know, state authorities decide, okay, if the NFIU does not want us to, you know, move cash, you know, physical cash, we might as well not even take it to the banks?
Well, in the first place, it will be in an account for them to even have it. So there's nothing to take to the bank. It is them taking it out of the bank and taking it out of the financial system.
That's the issue.
So they really have it. Without much ado, they really have it. So it's sitting in their account. How they use it, they can use it however they like. Sign check, withdraw, transfer, and all of that.
You just want the paper trail.
Now, it's not just the paper trail.
Okay.
This is the 21st century, for crying out loud. And I think that this is probably one of those policies that government and the Nigerian people should laud the NFIU for pushing along.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about the timing, and I think that for NFIU, we really don't respond to politics, but we also are a very sensitive organization that understand that to move a policy from, you know, conception to execution requires time, especially for habits to change, and also for government to make the right investment in terms of technologies and other organizational structure reforms that it needs to do so that this will be well implemented.
Okay.
So to say immediate effect, that language doesn't sit very well within our...
Why is that? I mean, that,
because,
what that means is that
because
this
it's going to just jolt the system.
Right.
But the time lag is so that people can adjust to the new reality.
Great.
And so that it's more effective.
within election period, I mean, and
So
it's a transition period.
So if you look at the
Right smack in
time,
the middle of an election.
good. If you look at the timing, it is in between the elections. So you can't say we did it for maybe the presidential election or for, no. It's simply a policy that is intended to save the Nigerian economy.
We hope so, because some will ask, I mean, in your analysis, you have said all the tiers of government have flouted the laws by withdrawing over 1 trillion naira from 2015 to 2022.
Exactly.
But Kingsley Amaku will have to thank you. He's the Assistant Director and Head of Department at the Legal and Sanctions Directorate of the NFIU, that's the Financial Intelligence Unit of Nigeria. Thank you so much.